This is Ray Jamison, creator of the Madcaps, and you are listening to True North Country Comics Podcast.
Welcome to the True North Country Comics Podcast, dedicated to promote Canadian comic book and graphic novel creators and supporters. I'm John Swinimer. On this episode, I chat with Ray Jamison about his new Kickstarter project, the Madcaps. Please like and subscribe to this website by hitting the subscribe button to be notified about new podcast interviews and article posts. This podcast is available wherever podcasts are enjoyed. Please like, follow, and subscribe. Based in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Ray Jamison is a comic creator and writer who reflects on his journey into the world of comics, the influence of Dungeons & Dragons on his storytelling, and the importance of community in the comic book industry. His current project is the Madcaps comic book series supported by Kickstarter. The Madcaps is a medieval fantasy miniseries described as a story of a brawny intellectual, a devout farmer, a good-hearted charlatan, and a social facilitator. The circle of friends shall reunite in their hometown, Ivywood. Before they can depart for employment, they're interrupted by a local drug problem which carries hidden, sinister undertones. Can they survive the night? And what is the source of this danger? The bond amongst these friends may be the only metric to answer such questions. So, without further ado, here's my chat with Ray Jamison about his new Kickstarter project, the Madcaps.
So, Ray Jamison, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
Happy to be here.
I appreciate your time, but before I get going with all the questions, I would like to know, what was the first comic book that you read?
The first comic book pushes back beyond the limits of my memory. I've been reading comics through my older brother to start. He's got almost 5 years of age on me, and I can remember very vaguely around that era of comic book with Hulk going to different worlds and fighting in arenas. And my brother loved the Hulk. He was a little bit into Iron Man, Spider-Man, of course. Not so much DC, and I don't know why at the time, but either way, earliest, a very heavy Marvel influence.
Right. Nothing wrong with that. Hey, that's all good. That's all good. So that's great stuff when you're growing up, but I'm wondering who or what inspires you to create today?
Well, this story here is actually, the best way to put it, this story, it's actually based off of the first homebrew campaign I ever ran for Dungeons & Dragons. And I removed the characters and I injected my own into it. The whole reason I wanted to do it as a comic book is, as you already asked and I already pointed out, I've been reading comics for forever. And the whole reason I started the D&D game was just so I had an excuse to talk to my friends via webcam. And at that time, I moved across country and I didn't get to see them anymore. We made some really good stories together. So I just wanted to express that in the medium of a comic book. When I was a kid, I loved drawing comic books. I went to, in Ontario, in Dundas, Ontario, there used to be a comic book course that you could take as a kid. And I went through the whole process of pencils and inks and lettering and coloring, panels, having a good pacing and story, etc. And it's always something I've wanted to do. And at my current age, being somewhat established in life in regards to career and family, I wanted to put some of this passion finally into a thing, and it's turned into this 3-issue miniseries.
That's cool. Now, you were based in Winnipeg.
Yes.
So with that in mind, I don't get there too often, so I'm wondering, maybe you could describe what the comic book creator scene is like there. What's it like?
Comic creator scene, there's a bunch of hidden gems here. For example, the person who did the interiors for issue 1 of the Madcaps, Evan Quiring, he's got some really cool stuff going on right now. You can look up his book, Murder City Devil, which is a take on Spring Heel Jack in a more modern era. And he's got another one called Lucha Mysteries, which is right out there. It involves basically pro wrestlers in Mexico. There's a wide range. We have Comic-Con here every October, and you get to see the locals. That's the best time to see it. But you also have people from other pieces of Canada. We have people from like Calgary and Toronto that stop in, and it's just a really good time. Well, if you look hard enough, you can find the comic scene here in Winnipeg.
Nice. Good to hear. Good to hear. So we're here talking about your series, The Madcaps. So I wonder if you could talk a wee bit about it. What's the story all about?
Okay, so The Madcaps is, as already stated, it's a medieval fantasy themed story. It involves 4 non-human friends, and the whole plot is about these friends getting back together for the first time in a while. And this reunion, it's cut short by an undead outbreak. And these 4 characters, they stand out in different ways, but they're not the mightiest of individuals in the realm. At one point, early in the first issue, 3 of them almost get killed, and they're actually saved by guards. And this is the equivalent of having like Captain Picard saved by a bunch of red shirts. I really wanted to underline they're not the most powerful of individuals in the realm, and that way, in one level or another, I think every reader can relate in some form to at least one of the characters because of that. And after that, early in that first issue, after the individuals, or rather the outbreak is deterred and doesn't get out of control, it's brought to the attention of these 4 individuals as they're helping the guards clean up the mess. They're led to believe it has something to do with a local drug problem. And from that point on, the story consists of a gentle balance of, do we stand back and do nothing? Is that the right thing to do? And are we outside of our pay grade here? Like, where's that weird balance? Do we just report and step away? Or do we do something because we're right in the fray of a scenario? By issue 3, it's explosive. We'll put it that way.
Okay.
The whole thing about when you're with your friends, everybody has friends. When you get old enough, you don't get to see them as much as you'd like to. And let's say you haven't seen somebody in the better part of a year, and you sit down at a restaurant, even for 5 minutes, you're recharged. This comic miniseries is actually an homage to that level of camaraderie. So anybody listening, if you've got friends that your body like longs to see them, like your very essence, your soul, really just, I want to hang out with my friends again. You will definitely relate to this. If you like fantasy, D&D, absolutely. This is a 3-issue miniseries, so because of that, you don't have to know 60 years of lore or history leading up to it to understand what's going on. But on the flip side, I wanted this to feel like the world existed before this miniseries, and this world existed after the miniseries. So intentionally, there is slight and mild pieces of missing data. You're just dropped into this circle of friends world, and some of the questions get answered a little bit, but you're just there to see what the heck happens. And by the end of it, I guarantee the end to this story, it has a satisfying end to it.
Okay. Well, it's something to look forward to, for sure. For sure. Now, you're the creator/writer,
Yes.
and obviously you've brought some people together to help you out. Can you talk about your collaborators that are helping you with this series?
Oh, man. So there is a crazy amount of talent. To quote Jerry Seinfeld, he said he never thought he was funny in his show, and the only way he could work around that is if he surrounded himself by talent. Well, this is my first time writing a comic, and it's up to the readers to decide if I am of any quality of a story writer. I don't have control over that, but I do have control over who represents what medium in the artistic side of this. So a great example, my colorist, his name is Dan Kemp. He has colored over 100 issues of Spawn, basically 50 to 150, a little before that, a little after. And this is a guy who's done coloring for Todd McFarlane, Capullo, John Muramata Jr. He's colored for Spawn, Marvel Knights, Amazing Spider-Man. And to have him put his professional touch on the look of almost every image that you see for this book, almost every cover, all of the interiors. Then you have to consider all the cover artists. The first one that comes to mind is Jimbo Salgado. He's done lots for DC. Another one, on a personal note, it was actually something I was very, very happy to get on my team for one cover, was Harvey Salterra's. He drew the first year of Ghost Rider in 1990, Volume 2, when Dan Ketch took over as the writer.
Mm-hmm.
The cover for issue number 1, where the dwarf Sarlacc, he's holding a beheaded monster, that is the talent that had a passive influence over my childhood. So having him draw one of my characters is the equivalent of having, like, Kurt Cobain sing a song that I've written. It was just, wow. Putting away the myth, I actually got that skill, that talent, the thing that made the myth of all of these great artists. I had somebody hand paint a cover for me for issue 1 named John Zalesnik, and he's another example. He's painted for, like, Magic the Gathering, Warhammer, but he's also painted for, like, metal albums. And one of his earliest things that I can remember that he's had influence on me with is the original cartridge cover for Ninja Gaiden for the Nintendo Entertainment System. I don't know how, but I mean, I just asked. I got a lot of no's from different talent, but some of the names I've listed and others said, sure, why not? And I'm just beside myself that it was that easy.
Wow, that's cool.
Oh, it's amazing. And I've had so much talent just to be able to... I look at this book, it's not my day job. I'm just doing it because I just want to get it out of my system. But these people are helping me just celebrate this story, essentially, with their skills and their talents. So many names, and I'm very grateful that they took a chance on me in the comic scene. I'm a nobody, and they're just like, sure, why not? Wow.
Well, you got to start somewhere.
Exactly.
That's cool. Well, can you walk me through the collaboration process? Because it sounds like you got a lot of great talent there. Was it something where you had the story and said, okay, guys, here you go, just go do it? Or was there a lot of back and forth sort of complimentary type of, maybe we could tweak this, that sort of thing?
I was very paranoid. I didn't want to be like overly controlling, because one thing that really kills an artist is if you give them too many constraints. A few constraints is very, very helpful, creative constraints. But one thing I did is I wrote out the script, and then for each page of the script, I actually, in stickman form on a whiteboard, drew out what I thought the layout would look like. And then I take a picture and attach it to each page of the script. But when I gave this to my interior artist, I then went on and disclaimed, you've been doing this longer than me, and if you feel, you know what, this panel would look better from this perspective, or these two panels will look better combined, I trust your instincts. Try something, and then we'll go from there. And aside from the details that I've just said, very straightforward. There's next to nothing for corrections. I'm very happy with how the process played out. Very happy that I had like a level of overly detailed, but then disclaiming saying, I'm probably being over detailed, so do what works, not what I'm trying to ask kind of thing. Very good balance there.
Yeah. No, you've hinted, you've even mentioned flat out that there's a D&D, which is a major component to your book. So I'm wondering, I assume you're a big D&D player, and wondering if so, how did you get started in it?
Yeah, I mentioned a little bit, but I'm glad you asked again because I can actually elaborate. So originally I started playing because I just wanted to hang out with my friends on webcam. I moved across country, so we were always just looking for excuses to hang out. And I proposed playing D&D. I had a couple friends who've played it. I've never jumped into it at all. And they voluntold me as DM, so I don't think I bit off more than I could chew. But I definitely chewed a lot. And on top of all of that, instead of using modules or any references, I did all homebrew. Every city, every character was all under my own ambition. And because of that, in conjunction with my friends helping sculpt these stories, we had like over a decade of lore. And I liked these stories so much in conjunction with my history with comic books. I just wanted to express this.
That's cool. Once it gets started, I think you said it's going to be starting up in April and
yes.
A couple weeks away. Maybe it's too early, but can you go through some of the incentives for backers who want to get at different levels to get your book and your series?
Okay, so we do have a catch-up. So if you don't have issue 1, which launched last year, you'll be able to purchase that one as well. We have different variant covers. There's 5 total. A lot of talent going through those books. And for issue 2, again, we do have variant covers. We will have access to a map of where this entire story takes place. It was drawn by Storm Wickham She did a really good job. In the first campaign, it came with a stretch goal. In this case, up front, we're going to make it an add-on for a very reasonable price. We also have, because of D&D, we're actually going to be adding character sheets this time. So it's going to be compatible with 5th edition for D&D, and you can play as any one of these 4 characters of the Madcaps. We do have other things coming up, but because we're pre-recording, I'm not exactly sure what's going to be revealed yet, because at this stage, we're just waiting to see what comes in with the tide, metaphorically speaking. I can say those things. I'll hold off on that, but I guarantee you, but when the time comes and the campaign's live, you'll see some other cool things on there.
Yeah, lots of good stuff. That's for sure. That's for sure. Worthwhile checking out. So here's a question, way out of left field, but I do ask it for a lot of creators, especially in this time and age. And this is on Kickstarter. And I was just listening to a podcast with the president of Kickstarter, the gentleman who's leading it up, and he was just talking about how AI is not something that he tolerates, I guess, in quotation marks, on the platform. And if creators do use it, they have to be upfront about it. So I got to ask you, what are your thoughts on using AI to create comic books and graphic novels?
Well, the best parallel I could draw you is I will never select a pizza pop over a handmade pizza in Italy. And both of them will give me a pizza result. And don't get me wrong, I have had a pizza pop or two. But at the end of the day, something that's crafted by hand is far superior to what AI can give you. I'm not saying whether or not AI has quote-unquote good quality or bad quality, and I'm sure it's going to improve over the years. But I will pick something crafted by hand. It's kind of funny. Now the way human talent is going, we're almost at the point where we can label them as artisans, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's true.
As of right now, in regards to AI art is based off of pre-existing art. And so because of that, they're dangerously on the line of plagiarism and copyright and other things. As of right now, I don't think I could fairly label it AI. It's a lot of intelligence, and what you ask of it, you're basically giving it an algorithm to work off of. But it's not like it's going to give me all the details and have full context and stuff. Right now, even if it was a good thing later on, I'm not saying it is, but even if it became a good thing later on, it's just not the same. There's something about, you can buy an axe at a hardware store and these things are mass produced. Or if you went to a blacksmith and bought an axe from him, the handle's pre-carved. There's a lot of life in that. And because it's not mass produced, there's probably a lot more time making it a better quality blade. When we talk about pencilers and inkers, they're the blacksmith axe. I want that. There's a lot of life behind it, and it's probably going to be more custom to me as opposed to custom to the masses.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. So here's a question I might know the answer already to, but I'd like to know, what's your next project? And I know that we just talked about issue number 2, but what's coming down the road for you?
Well, the obvious one after that is issue number 3. Issue number 3 is the last one. As they say in volleyball, bump, set, and spike. Each one of these issues is a different act in the story. Number 3, it spikes, and it spikes hard. And that is my current goal. I've had some people ask, are you going to launch this again as a trade paperback, all 3? And I'm definitely open to the idea. But as for right now, my focus is issue 2. I want it to be, as I've said before, I want this to be worthy of the industry. So I'm not looking past it, because this is a side job for me. This is passion. This is not my paycheck. I just want to do something that's awesome. If people like it too, then that's bonus.
Okay. And you mentioned off the top that this is sort of an itch that you want to scratch when it comes to getting a story out. Have you been mulling about in your mind some other different type of story? Is this sort of like turned on a switch in your brain saying, you know what, this is something I might want to do later on?
I do have something on the back burner that is with a co-writer. Unfortunately, I cannot say anything else.
Okay.
And again, back burner because it's not on my forefront at the moment.
Okay. That's fair. That's fair. Good stuff. Well, we've been talking quite a bit about the Madcaps. I'm wondering, where can people find out more about it when the Kickstarter goes live in April?
Okay, so we have a pre-launch right now, and that is the best way to help me. Even if you did not support the Kickstarter, just signing up is going to sway the algorithm in my favor. I really feel this is a story that it's one person that's producing the story, in that case, me. I don't have a company saying, make sure this message is in it, or make sure you slant it towards this agenda. There's none of that. And for someone like myself to be able to launch this, I need the recognition for it to be successful. Number 1 was great. Ideally, I'd like number 2 to be better. The only way that happens is if you click on the link and follow it, and then you'll get notified as soon as it launches. You can also find me on Facebook as DM Ray. DM is short for Dungeon Master. And you can also find me on both Instagram and what I like to call Twixter. You can find me as Raymond the DM. Unfortunately, DM Ray was taken. There's also a Madcaps Facebook page. You can look that up. Any of the things that I've just stated will be up to date. But if you only looked at one thing, the Kickstarter pre-launch and signing up so you'll get notification and follow it, that is the most helpful way by far. Nothing else holds a candle to it in order to get this thing rolling.
Very good. Well, Ray, those are the questions I have for you, but I'm wondering, is there something I didn't ask that you'd like to get across in this interview?
Indie comics is a really cool environment that I've just been recently getting into, and it's something that I'm very much enjoying. Much like any group or culture, I think it's very important that all individuals understand there is no reason to be fighting. And don't get me wrong, I don't see a lot of fighting in the indie community. But as long as we keep contributing, ideally, without the overly optimistic, positive attitude of the opening to the Lego movie, where everybody's dancing and singing along, at the end of the day, we should be thinking that everything is awesome. Because when people dwell in stuff, that's when people start having a bad time. We have this thing now where everybody uses words, and I'm not saying that they're unjustified. They're definitely justified in a lot of respects. Words like mental health. Well, the only way to combat that is with being a positive person in your environment. That's the real medicine, in my opinion. In most cases, if it's not the cure, it's definitely going to be at least a little bit of an ointment. And I really think that all people that listening, it doesn't matter whether you're working at a job, you have a very direct influence on your surroundings. You can't control anything else, so you might as well not dwell on it and just make sure the people around you are a half a step in a positive swing because of your surrounding.
Thanks to Ray for the chat. You can discover more about Ray on Instagram at instagram.com/RaymondTheDM. And you can discover more about the Madcaps on Kickstarter. Thank you for tuning in to the True North Country Comics podcast. You're invited to visit the True North Country Comics website to listen to even more conversations with creators about making comic books and graphic novels. I also encourage you to subscribe via the website so you'll be notified about new podcast interviews and article posts. This podcast is available wherever podcasts are enjoyed. Please like, follow, and subscribe. You can follow along True North Country Comics on most social media sites, and you're encouraged to send any and all feedback to john@truenorthcountrycomics.com. Thanks for tuning in, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. True North Country Comics Podcast is copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2025.